Hussein Salami, the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, stands at the podium in military uniform and speaks about the dignity of the Iranian people. And this is how his circle lives. The generals, their sons, their daughters, called Akzidi in Persian, the princes of the regime, live that very Western lifestyle, the same Western lifestyle that their fathers curse from the podium every morning. And here is the question for which we have gathered here today. Do Iranian generals care about their country or only about themselves? Well, let's begin. The biggest scandal of the millennium. Today's story we'll call 28 Days That Shook the World. And that's even though we still don't know most of the details. So let's go back to Trump's victory, his election as the 45th president in 2016. On December 9th of that same 2016, there were 42 days left until Donald Trump's inauguration. In the Situation Room at the White House, a small group gathers. Money. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, CIA Director John Brennan, FBI Director James Comey, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Secretary of State John Kerry, Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Barack Obama gives an order that will define American political reality for the next 8 years. In 28 days, bypassing the standard procedure of the National Intelligence Council, Obama demands that they prepare a new, different, and distinct assessment of Russian interference in the elections, different from what the intelligence had found. In other words, he is demanding that they lie and deceive to change it. Russia tried to influence the U.S. elections, but did not help Trump. That's what was being widely written about the Kremlin. Helped Trump and brought him to power. In 30 days, this document will land on the desk of the newly elected President Trump and will launch the Mueller investigation, 2 impeachments, and billions of dollars spent searching for collusion with Russia, from which, as we now know, not even the Durham prosecutor's report found anything. It turned out that this was absolute and complete nonsense, just as it was from the very beginning. Those were the 28 days. The ones that stopped America's progress, plunged us into a bitter division, and almost turned us into a banana republic. But let's break everything down step by step and look at the facts. Who is to blame for this? Who will be held responsible for this? Will America be able to become a great country again after such a blow? I want to ask you to put aside for a minute whether you are for Trump or against him. What I'm telling you is not about Trump. It's about the mechanism that stands above any election, about why the founding fathers of America feared this internal mechanism more than any tyrant from outside. Let's think about what happened, just the cold facts. In July 2025, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, declassified a set of documents related to the very same intelligence community assessment from January 6, 2017, with a document confirming that Putin sought to help Trump, with the document that supported the entire narrative of this Russian collusion. The Galbert materials, combined with previously classified methodological reviews of the Intelligence Committee, that is the House Intelligence Committee, prepared under the leadership of Devin Nunes, contain 3 statements. Each of them, if proven in court, destroys the foundation of all the accusations that were made against Trump. First, until December 2016, the intelligence community unanimously assessed that Russia did not have the cyber capability to manipulate the election results. That is, even if it wanted to, even if it had wanted to, it couldn't. And second, Russia likely did not attempt to influence the elections by cyber means. This was recorded in an item in the daily presidential briefing, prepared when? December 8th, that is, exactly what we were just talking about. Second, this point was removed. Before it was delivered to Trump, they took it out, crossed it out, removed it, whatever they call it. Third, in 30 days, the analytical line was completely reversed. That is, the intelligence reported one thing. The intelligence, that is, altogether, all the U.S. intelligence agencies came to the same conclusion. There was nothing. And now I promise I will tell you something that the mainstream media, the mainstream press, carefully kept quiet about. This is not a guess, not a conspiracy theory. This is documented in the intelligence review. Not by just one, but by several intelligence agencies, and it is signed by career analysts from the intelligence community. A dossier was attached to the official intelligence assessment of the United States. Steals. So the so-called investigation is actually a lie, paid for by Hillary Clinton's campaign. Well, it's a fantasy and a lie that was put together. The FBI itself admitted it was, well, as they wrote, unverified. That is, they didn't say it was false, just unverified. Well, and they were able to check it, and that's it. It was attached despite the direct statements of professional analysts. That's the first thing. Here's the second thing, which I think is even more important. A dissenting opinion from the National Security Agency. A dissenting opinion from the only agency that is technically capable of verifying the conclusion about the Kremlin's intentions. Because it is the one that handles signal interception, it was, as it says there, softened. The NSA assigned the key conclusion about Putin's preferences, meaning Putin's preference for Trump, a rating of moderate confidence. That is, well, actually, we're not really sure about this at all. Think about it. The only agency technically capable of knowing the answer was uncertain. The opposition dossier, paid for by the losing side, was attached to the official assessment against the wishes of its authors. As we later found out, neither the source, what was his name, Dichenko, I think, yes, Steele, had the slightest idea how it would be used. They were just asked to do something, well, to lie, to make up a big story. They said, okay, made up a big story, submitted it, and then said, wait a second. We never expected this would go so high. Now we're going to get punished for this, but no one punished them for it. All this happened in 28 days. 28 days bypassing the standard procedure by direct order of the outgoing president who, well, what does he think of Trump? Take a guess, hint he hates, and you can figure out the rest yourself. Why is this more important than the Democrats versus Republicans debate? This is where the main point begins, the reason why I'm even, so to speak, putting together this speech. Andrew Galambos, an astrophysicist and founder of the Free Enterprise Institute in Los Angeles, in his lectures on volitional science, formulated what the American founding fathers intuitively knew, but they didn't have time to fully establish it in the Constitution.
Государство.
The state, they said, is not a neutral arbiter that protects freedom for no reason. It is an apparatus that, having gained a monopoly on coercion, on force, on weapons, inevitably begins to use it against freedom. December 2016. Not a conspiracy of Democrats against Republicans. No, structures. Naturally, this is much more serious. These are intelligence agencies, secret police, all sorts of security forces. Oh, these are security forces that, existing without strict, or maybe it's better to say rigid, procedural restrictions, turn from an instrument into a player. They no longer help or stop, right? Now they're playing their own game. And it doesn't matter who's in power, it doesn't matter whom this apparatus, so to speak, helps get elected or keeps from getting elected. What matters is that a few people in one room got the ability to choose which versions of reality will reach millions of citizens who have already voted. Well, just like how they picked Putin Russia, right? 3 people decided whom the people would be allowed to choose. So Tatiana Tchaikovsky, that's Yeltsin's daughter, Valentin Yumashov, and, well, I can't remember right now, was it Berezovsky or Chubayev, right? The versions differ, as they say. I'm a bit confused, but the first 2 are certain. I don't recall the third. So, 8 people gathered by Obama in the Situation Room wouldn't want someone to do something like that to a president they elected. But they did it to the one chosen by others, that is, the one chosen by the country. Of course, there will be objections, counter-arguments, and I have to voice them. The bipartisan report of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Volume 5, published in 2020, I think in August, signed, among others, by then-Senator Marco Rubio, confirmed the fact of Russian influence operations, the hacking of DNC servers, leaks through WikiLeaks. This is not made up. Russia conducted an information operation targeting the American elections against the capitalists. But between Russia conducting influence operations and Putin personally choosing Trump as the president of the United States, I would say there's a bit of a gap. The first is an operational fact. The second is psychological attribution, which requires evidence. There was none back then, and there is none now. It was across this very gap that Obama forced the intelligence community to leap across it in just 28 days. Well, what's next, you might ask, right? The case was turned over to the Department of Justice. Former U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has convened a grand jury to investigate the actions of Brennan, Comey, and others. Obama's office immediately issued a very rare public denial, but notice they did not refute a single specific document, fact, or argument. We'll see how this ends. But remember one thing. If America can conduct this investigation honestly, not as partisan revenge, but as a procedural audit of what happened with its own intelligence agencies in December 2016, then we will have a precedent that we have never had before. What kind of precedent, gentlemen? It may seem trivial to you. Believe me, it's not trivial. It's a precedent for holding the apparatus accountable. The nomenclatura of the deep state. To be held accountable to the citizens. This has never happened before. Never. This will not be a victory of the Republicans over the Democrats. This will be a victory of the Republic over the apparatus. If the investigation is hushed up or if it turns into some kind of show, yes, we'll get the same thing again in December 2016 and the next time, with different names, a different target, until the very idea of elections just becomes mere window dressing. And the decisions will be made by either 3 people, like in Russia, or 8, like in America. People who have gathered in a quiet, nice, peaceful, wonderful office. That's why I'm asking for 3 things. First, read the documents yourself. Gabbard declassified them and published them on the internet. Don't believe me, or CNN or Fox. Open the methodological review and read it page by page. It's written in English. First, the language is accessible to any literate person. Second, today AI and Google can easily translate it. Second, tell this story to those who are sure that all of this has long been debunked. Just don't start waving documents around. And third, if this topic is important to you, support our projects such as Science of Freedom and Camerton.global. We are doing what mainstream media does not. We teach people to think independently, because that's the most important thing. That's what they're trying to unteach our children in schools and universities. We teach people to see the structure where others show only faces, in a world where the system defeats the citizen, where the system has always defeated the citizen. The only protection is an educated person capable of independent judgment. Hillel, my favorite hero, if you know him, said a few phrases 100 years before the birth of Christ that have come down to us. If I'm not for myself, who will be? If not now, then when? So, ladies and gentlemen, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Today, this means a simple thing. If we don't read the documents, no one will read them for us. The Iranian regime is not Iran. The IRGC is not an army, it's a business. IRGC. Remember the number 40%. That's the percentage of the Iranian economy that, according to various estimates, is controlled by the Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's no longer just an army, it's a business empire in military uniform. Their construction giant Qatam Al-Anbiya builds roads, gas pipelines, dams, billion-dollar contracts, no tenders at all. They own shares in banks. They bought the state telecom operator for billions. They're in petrochemicals, the auto industry, ports, and telecom. And most importantly, they control smuggling. Oil, sanctions evasion, currency, weapons, drugs. Each new round of sanctions makes them richer and the Iranian worker poorer. That's the law. Salami Khani, their generals are dollar millionaires, if not billionaires. Their families are in Dubai, Istanbul, Toronto, and London. And now the next question. What do they spend this money on? Their wars are not for Iran. Since 2011, the IRGC has spent tens of billions of dollars. On what? On improving the lives of their fellow citizens? No, not at all. On wars outside of Iran. In Syria, they saved Bashar Assad at the cost of 500,000 Syrian lives. In Iraq, they maintain Shiite militias, a parallel army. In Lebanon, they support Hezbollah with money, weapons, and expert personnel. In Yemen, they supply the Houthis with missiles. In Gaza, they financed Hamas until October 7, 2023, and they continue to finance those who remain today. And what is happening inside Iran during this time? The Iranian rial, their currency, in 2010 it was 30,000 rials for $1. Today it's 1,000,000 rials for $1. In fact, it's already more than that. The savings of an entire generation have turned to dust. Youth unemployment is over 25%. Droughts. They squandered the reservoirs. They cut off the electricity. Millions of educated Iranians, scientists, engineers, doctors are fleeing. This isn't a brain drain. This is a mass exodus. Ask a worker in Isfahan if he wants his taxes to go toward missiles for Hezbollah. No, he wouldn't want that. And now comes the hardest part of this video. Remember what I'm about to say next. This is the answer to the question. Do they care about their own people? They shoot at their own people. 2009, the Green Movement. Hundreds of thousands are on the streets of Tehran, while the IRGC and the Basij shoot point-blank, arrest, and torture.
2017-2018.
2017, 2018. Economic protests in dozens of cities, suppressed. November 2019. Protests against gasoline prices. The regime shuts down the entire internet in the country so the world can't see. Reuters and human rights activists estimate over 1,500 people were killed in just 1 week. The year 2022. Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman, dies in the morality police's custody for wearing her hijab incorrectly.
Неправильно надетый хиджаб.
Iran erupts. The slogan Zan Zendegi Azadi means woman, life, freedom. 500 killed, including children. About 20,000 arrests, public executions of protesters were carried out by hanging them on construction cranes. They hung there for days, so that others could see. And be afraid. These are not the actions of people who protect their own people. These are the actions of people who protect themselves from their own people. Remember this phrase. It is the key to everything in Iran. And what does the Iranian people themselves want? Now here's the twist, and it's the reason I'm making this video. There is an independent Dutch-Iranian study conducted by Gammon. They carry out anonymous surveys inside Iran. And here's what they find year after year. 80% of Iranians want the separation of religion from the state. At least 70% are against the hijab. The majority want normal relations with the U.S. and with Israel. With the world in general, most oppose the nuclear program, especially in its military form. Iranians are an ancient civilization. Ferdowsi, Hafez, Sadi, scientists, doctors, engineers, a people who gave the world chess and algebra, and the first decree in history about freedom of religion. Cyrus the Great, 2,500 years ago. By the way, the best friend of the Jews, these people, the Persian people, don't want what their governments are doing, but the people are hostages to their mullahs. Iran and the Iranian regime are two different things, completely different. Concepts of the people, just living in the same geography. The Galambas Principle. Andrew Galambas, the founder of the science of will, whom I have already mentioned, discovered a law that explains everything I have just talked about. The coercive systems of the state, based on violence instead of voluntary agreement, behave predictably. Those who control the apparatus of coercion first take care of themselves and their families, and secondly, they build an ideological cover that justifies their position, and only in third place and only occasionally do they do anything for the country. The Iranian regime is simply a textbook example of this law. Shia Islamism, the export of revolution, death to America, death to Israel, these are not the goals. It's a veneer of legitimacy. Underneath it is personal enrichment and holding on to power, and nothing more. Nothing more. The great Hillel put it briefly, do not do to your neighbor what is hateful to you. Iranian generals are doing to their people exactly what they would not want anyone to do to them. And they call it, you guessed it, defending the nation. Now, why am I still an optimist? Every tyranny is sustained not the way you've been told, not by bayonets. It is sustained by the faith of its enforcers in its righteousness. When the enforcers stop believing, tyranny collapses within days. The Soviet Union, East Germany, Ceausescu in Romania, all collapsed as soon as the apparatus stopped believing, stopped being convinced, and the Iranian regime no longer believes in itself. Their own children live in Canada. Their money is in Dubai. Their generals are moving assets out. This is not the behavior of people who are ready to die for an idea. This is the behavior of people who are packing their bags. And below, there is an entire nation, ancient, literate, educated, and remembering what freedom is. Young people who have no illusions, women who proved in 1922 that they would face bullets. The Iranian people will free themselves. Not tomorrow. Maybe not this year. But they will do it. And when it happens, the Middle East will be changed forever. Without Hezbollah, without the Houthis, without billions for Hamas. With their best minds back, with a rebuilt economy, with millions of Iranians who will no longer be hostages. And our task here in the free world is not to substitute their liberation with our invasions. Not to build their democracy with our bayonets, but to support those inside. With free internet, truth, and broadcasts. With this very video that you are watching right now, 3 actions. Do 3 things today. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell. Share this video with someone who thinks the regime equals the people. That's not true. It never was. Second, go to the Roadmap to Freedom channel. There they write about things the big media stays silent about. Third, and most importantly, remember this and pass it on. Iranians are our allies, the mullahs, our enemies. Freedom is not a gift, it is a right. The Iranian people have just as much right to it as we do, and they will get it. See you in the next episode.